Hey guys.
Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Well, you've got 6 guys in the room who've never taken a snap for Ohio State. Well, I guess Chris did some mop-ups, a couple. What's the challenge that you face the next, till training camp and beyond?
I think it's getting to know everybody on a level that you need to be at to be successful, knowing their strengths, knowing their weaknesses, knowing where we need to grow the most is really what this summer, what we're trying to get done and trying to accomplish is to push ourselves from a knowledge standpoint, from a football IQ, to know this Ohio State offense as good as we possibly can be. And when we were in the meetings, it's some head shaking, and there's a theory of learning, Kilpatrick's theory of learning, I believe. It's been years since I've read it, but you can head nod all you want, but until you actually perform something or execute something, or until you produce, you really truly don't know. And I think we're at that stage right now where we're continuing to grow, we're continuing to learn, and it's getting really exciting because we're getting really close to that time where we're going to kick it off.
And it's not just the quarterback straight. Obviously, you're new.
Yes, sir.
And you're trying to learn the playbook inside and out, which I'm assuming you have already, but again, reading it and looking at it is different than implementing it.
That's right. There's nuances that occur, that you can't see necessarily on paper, and really based upon what the defense gives you and how they react. It's a very fluid process, and football is a game where there's 22 guys on the field at one time, and there's a multitude of coverages and fronts and movements and blitzes and stunts and all of the things that go into it and our adjustments. And at the same time, we have to be attacking. We have to be playing fast. So we have fast players. We have guys that are very athletic, and the more that we can eliminate any mental hesitation, the faster that they can be. If they run a 4-4, if they have to think, they're now running a 4-5, 4-6. So let's make sure that they're equipped with all the knowledge that they have to be equipped with to play full speed mentally, and then that will translate to playing full speed physically.
Mike, how would you evaluate the spring that Justin had? When he left the spring game, that's been 6 weeks or so, he said he was like a C or C plus in that game. Mm-hmm. Were you that hard on him, grading him through those 15 practices, or what do you think he accomplished there?
Well, I think the general overall knowledge of the offense was good. I don't think there's just one thing with Justin that we can say this is it or that's it. I think as a whole, the improvement has to be well-rounded. The growth has to be complete in every aspect of quarterback play, including leadership. That's a big key. There's going to be times where our quarterback needs to be vocal, and there's a time where our quarterback's going to have to pick himself off the turf and be the toughest guy on the field. All of those sorts of things we will see once game time nears, and as we play games and things emerge, and you're able to see certain things that you can't necessarily see in practice. Our quarterbacks aren't live, and I don't think anywhere across the country they're live, but maybe a select few places. But those are certain things that when you get into the game and you get into each game plan, how much information can he process from a game planning standpoint? We have to try to find those things out now. And so as you're going through spring, you're trying to throw a lot at them. And then there comes a time with every quarterback, I don't care where you're at, where if you're doing the right things, you're trying to challenge that capacity where you're overloading to a certain extent. And then the barrier, that the borderline of that threshold of what's too much. And then you scale it back. And I think we've done that to try to test and then scale back and then whole, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's the process of quarterback play and installing offenses and learning a system.
When you talk about that leadership part, and he can't get hit or win a game right now, but he's going to be throwing, he's going to be working out with those guys. What do you want him to do to establish some of that leadership now? Play urgently.
Everything's got to be faster. Everything, the urgency of your drop, the urgency of your progressions, the urgency to prepare and to utilize the day as best you can, to study film, with a hunger and a desire to be the best you possibly can be. That's what we're trying to get done with all of our guys.
How is he with that? How is it Justin with that?
I think he's really good. I think he understands it. I think he's well ahead of the curve as far as that goes, and I think that's a thing from a coaching standpoint where that needs to always increase. We always have to press upon the learning and the preparation, because that's what we can control. So the things that we can control are the things that we emphasize.
First game is the end of August. I mean, how confident are you that, most people think it's going to be Justin, that Justin will be ready, and he will obviously, he's going to have growing pains, but he'll be really ready by then?
I don't get into the world of predicting or how confident am I. I do my job, take this day, schedule, try to plan ahead and be organized and prepare our players the best we possibly can. That's the world I try to stay in.
Okay.
Well, where's that fine line between a player playing y'all's game and then the player taking it to the next level and playing his game at quarterback? We saw Baker Mayfield, make plays after plays and stuff, and that's probably a 4-letter word in your name, in your book. But I mean, where do you cross that line?
I think what you're referring to is more like quarterbacks coming off schedule and freelance.
Yeah,
I think there's a fine line with that, and the most important thing with quarterbacks that have a lot of natural ability and quarterbacks with escapability, quarterbacks that can extend plays, and quarterbacks that can make backyard ball plays is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Ball security is the number one. We have to protect the ball. We have to be responsible. We have, there's a few statistics that correlate to wins majorly, and a major correlation. Turnovers is one of those. We can control turnovers. So we have to be responsible. We have to be going through our progressions. We have to get the ball out on time. So if things break down and the creative process takes hold at that point, I don't think you ever want to take the athleticism away or hinder any or handcuff anybody, but there still has to be a discipline throughout the process of quarterbacking.
And the reason I'm saying that is because we saw 4 or 5 plays in the spring game that if it had been live, Justin would have made a huge play. Did you see enough of that part of him to feel, confident, whatever the word is?
I think we understand right now where his strengths are and where he needs to continue to grow, and we're not going to sit here and say he needs to become a better scrambler. We need to focus on, he needs to be, all of our quarterbacks need to secure the ball as best we possibly can. We're going to work very hard on our drill work on ball security, and we're also going to continue to work on the disciplines of the offense. That's, as a quarterback coach, what you have some sort of control over, and what you want to increase is the progressions, understanding where the ball needs to go, and based on what the defense is, defensive identification, mastering everything from A to Z, from protections to run game, run checks, all of those sorts of things that from a systematic discipline approach that you have to control.
There's an answer on almost every play. There's an answer there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because he's so good with his legs, do you over-exaggerate the pocket part of it now so that come forward?
I think you want to cater to the quarterback's natural abilities. Certain guys, I think you're going to see weaknesses, and certain guys you're going to see strengths. We believe in playing to the quarterback's strengths, but at the same time, you have to also try to increase where they're weakest. So you try to evaluate all those things in the off season, and then it's at the same time we have to operate the Ohio State offense.
We haven't talked to you since Matthew left. How much of a blow was that? In part because he was the guy who's been in the room the longest.
I think in this day and age, with the portal being a factor in everything, it's what's real in college football, and we wish that young man the best in his next venture, and we move on.
And that kind of swings the other way. Gunnar Hoke, he had a little bit of a body of work, I guess, at Kentucky. How much did you go into what he did at Kentucky to see if his skills, his ability fit what you guys are looking at here? Did you do a deep dive, or what?
Every quarterback that we bring into our program will be evaluated thoroughly.
Mm-hmm. And what'd you find with Gunnar when you looked at it? I guess?
He's a guy that fits our system.
Mm-hmm.
What has stood out to you about him so far?
He's a very cerebral guy. I think he's been coached really well. Being in college football for a number of years, he is a little bit ahead of the curve than, say, a true freshman. And he's a very intelligent guy. And not being able to have worked with him on the field throwing the ball, at least, it's really hard for me to, go and elaborate on an individual who hasn't had one practice yet. So that's a tough one.
And that's basically with more than half the room, right? I mean,
that's right. That's the truth.
That's got to be a unique.
That is. I mean, but that's the situation in a lot of rooms. I mean, that's how it goes.
Is that the way it's going to be, do you think, down the road?
I don't know. I don't.
Would you almost be like reluctant to recruit a big-time quarterback if he's got to sit for a couple of, you know what I mean? I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I guess try to ask your question a little bit. I'm not sure in your direction there.
Well, in other words, there's no quarterback here that Ohio State originally recruited, seriously and stuff in a 1-year span and stuff. And I'm just wondering, do you get the sense from your room that people are always going to be eyeballing what's coming in the door and where opportunities are?
Well, based on the current rules, I think that's kind of the wave. At the same time, you also have to try to do what's best for your program from the long term, and so that does still go old school and evaluating high school prospects and recruiting high school prospects and making sure that you're doing the best job you can of building those relationships. And we want to have depth, obviously. We don't want to revamp the quarterback room every year. We want stability within that. And so a lot of those discussions are taking place as we speak, and we need to have talent. We need to have kids that have really strong character and have the discipline to be successful at Ohio State.
What are the things you have to do to accelerate the learning process for a guy like Gunner when he comes into the summer and he's got to be ready to play in the fall?
Well, you only have a certain amount of meeting times, so you're hoping that the individual has that inside, the internal drive to be a guy that can work on his own and to really be a football junkie and to study a lot of film on his own. There's only so much time that you can meet with him this time of year, and you do your best and try to be organized and try to maximize your meeting times. That's really important to do that. And then a lot of it's got to be on their own.
How hard is that for a coach to know that so much rides on whether that kid gets up at 7 a.m. and is doing what you hope he does, but you really can't be sure?
We've been blessed. We've been blessed with a lot of young men who are very conscientious and put the team first. And those are the types of things that you do when you're a team guy.
Coach, how tough is it? You always want to develop a quarterback and take your time with them, but sometimes with the way guys leave early or this transfer portal and all that, how much has that changed, I guess, what you guys do as coaches as far as the kids?
I don't think it changes anything really as far as what you can do. You're always going to try to educate them and give them as much information as one they can handle, and two, what they can absorb and what you need to have them learn to be a very successful offense. So I don't think anything changes from what our role is, and we're still trying to affect other things than just football. It's the whole thing. It's trying to get to know them on a personal level, from a social aspect, from an educational aspect. These guys are still student athletes, so just trying to connect with them and trying to build that relationship. As I had my first media interaction with you guys, it does take time. So anytime those relationships start fresh again, you're back on square one. So that's just the process, but you can't skip a step. I mean, it is what it is. There's a progression through it, and you have to work through it.
But that transfer portal thing's kind of changed everything. Do you worry where this could be headed? Because your position, the quarterback position, is unique. Only one guy can play. Mm-hmm. You got several linebackers. Got all the, there's only one that can play.
Mm-hmm. I think it makes you appreciate different types of student athletes, especially the ones that put the university first, and team, and that attitude of unselfishness is so important to have at every position, not just quarterback. And I know we try to single the quarterback out because it's different, but it's really not. All your players need to have that team first attitude. That's what you're trying to attract. At the same time, I'm a guy that transferred myself, and I was a quarterback. So, I mean, it comes full circle a little bit. I get it. I think you have to give yourself a chance, but at the same time, most programs only going to play one quarterback, and that's just the nature of competition.
Mike, you got here, I forget exactly when you were hired, but you knew Dwayne was going to be moving on, I'm sure. Somebody had said you were going to have this kind of revolving door in the next 4 or 5 months. What would you have said? How would have?
I don't get in. Again, that's like a speculative, like gossip type questions, like what ifs and this and that. I just try to do my job. I'm trying to coach these quarterbacks to the best of my ability, give them as much information as possible, and the rest of the stuff is kind of a little bit fluff for all the bloggers out there that I really don't get into that.
So that probably helps you because you don't.
I try to stay focused on my job, and my job is to help the quarterbacks become the best at what they do, and everything else. There's a lot of things that are out of my control, and so for me to speak on those types of things is kind of like just wind in the air.
You can only coach the ones that are here.
That's correct.
When you look at Fields, what sets him apart from everybody, and how excited are you for him this season?
Well, I think he's still trying to set himself apart from everybody at this time, and he's got a very live arm. He's got really good feet. Obviously, physically, being 225 pounds and being able to run as fast as he can makes him a special, unique individual. Now, we can talk about that all we want. We still have to produce. We still have to make plays, and we have to go out and operate the offense like experts, and that's my job. So there's still a lot of work to be had. The guy hasn't taken a snap yet, so for us to sit here and talk about how good he is, he has to go out, he has to prove it, and he has to start fall camp and prove it.
When you, as a coach, from a creative standpoint, where have you found your most creativity from a standpoint of trying to figure out a new way to do something or whatever? Is it, like I was asking Ryan Days, he's sitting at a stoplight and it comes like over a eureka moment? Or is it, I would think sometimes if you just grind on it, it doesn't come. When have you found your most creative environment?
Oh, man. I would say just sometimes it's late at night, just drawing on napkins and stuff like that. And a lot of times it's in a film room. Sometimes in the summertime when nobody's around, if you take a few days here or there and maybe in July and come and just shut the door and just watch somebody else on offense, you really get to just freelance. There's no assignment other than, you get your homework done, you get your third downs done, you get your, first 5 opponents rather done, and you get those guys done, you put that to bed, and then you have some free time to look at whoever you want. I think those are great times to take advantage as a coach, and then that creates the...
Do you literally, is that a discipline you have, or is that just something you understand you have to do in this game now to stay
Well,
ahead?
it's fun. I mean, that's a golfer golfs, and a coach looks at film,
Coach draws.
Fishermen fish,
But
I don't fish and I don't golf.
But how important is it in this game, too, though, Mike, to stay cutting edge, so to speak? That's what you said.
Well, I mean, you're asking me. I think it's very important. I think it's very important to try to learn the most cutting edges of everything, and I think that's what I appreciate most about being here is because it forces you to do that, and it forces you to do it in different aspects, not just X's and O's. It's recruiting here. It's getting around Coach Mick and seeing strength and conditioning, trying to educate yourself on that end of things, from a leadership, from Tim Kite coming in and giving his leadership presentations and trying to help you become a better leader and learning strategies, how you can, get healthier in your own mind and get more competitive and have an edge to you. All of those sorts of things is what Ohio State's about. It's about development, and to not take advantage of that, you'd be foolish.
And one more quick thing. Tomorrow, I think camp's going to start. What does a quarterback have to do to catch your attention?
In camp, you have to be accurate. You have to throw an accurate pass, good feet, attention to detail. There's a certain amount of arm strength that is involved, but I necessarily won't look at 40 times and say, this guy, we need a certain amount of time here. Most of these guys are underdeveloped from a strength and conditioning standpoint, just because their bodies haven't grown into themselves yet, especially at the quarterback position, because a lot of them are baseball guys that are just, late bloomers, so to speak. So the strength and development portion isn't as important, but just when it comes out of their hand, the repetitions on the ball, the RPMs, the spin, as we say, sometimes, it's my wife could go down the line and say, that guy, or that guy, not so much, it's just, you get your eyes on them and you're able to see the natural guys. But then after that, once you broad stroke it and get your selected, okay, these are the 20 guys I really like in this particular camp, then it becomes more detailed. Are they throwing it on time? Can they take coaching and apply it? And then it becomes very detailed. So there's phases. There's a broad phase where my wife can pick them out, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you get more detailed. And then you try to challenge them from a mental standpoint and maybe try to rattle them. And if they stay composed, that's a guy that you would want. This guy got rattled, and the mental aspect of it as well. So and throwing to moving targets changes things. So sometimes you're playing catch and it looks great, and then all of a sudden he's got to throw at a moving target and he's not as accurate. So accuracy is first. That's where it starts, and then everything grows from there.
Have you been asked about the transfer portal?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for asking me if I've been asked.
That's right.
We ask you guys numerous questions about the new quarterbacks that come in. And obviously you have 6 new quarterbacks, but you're also kind of learning Ohio State's offensive system as well. Meshing that with your own offensive system, how's that kind of been, the transition?
We're not meshing my offensive system.
Have you found any difficulties in learning Ohio State's system?
No, I wouldn't say difficulties. There's certain things that take more focus than others. Some things are a little bit unfamiliar with systems in the past, so those are the things that you really got to grind on. That's natural. There's always going to be something that's a little bit different than your offense, and there's some things that are a lot of bit different, and a lot of bit different is where you spend most of your time.
When it comes to getting a transfer just comfortable with a new system, how much deprogramming?
Great question. That has to come from within each individual. I can't just assume and spend a lot of time and focus on what he knows and try to translate that information into new information. Present the new information in different ways in which he learns best. Try to find out, is it visual with him? Is it spatial? Is he a video guy? Does he need to walk through it? Do you have to say it in a different way? He needs to say it back to you. Okay, there's retainment there. Do you see it on film? Can he perform? Is he performing those tasks? And then that's where a lot of the time is taking place. It's not necessarily, that's what, this is chicken salad. You knew tuna salad. We need to take I don't know if it's tuna salad or what kind of shit salad it is for you. You need to make sure that it's chicken salad.
Does he bring that up? I mean, does he say, this is how I did it there? Do you have to?
He's really good about that. He doesn't bring that up because that can get frustrating, and we all, I think, all of us coaches understand that that can get a little irritating at times to people that have learned the system and they're in the system. So it's assumed that everybody has either run flat curl or some sort of smash route in 4 verticals, and get with the program and call it your language, and we don't need to talk about those sorts of things.
Coach Day's doing and maybe you've talked about this already, but you're doing the mental health thing in nationwide.
It's awesome.
You've done the college thing for a while. Have you seen a change in kids? I've been told that kids more and more are going to counselors or going to that. It's just life is getting more complicated for them. Have you experienced that? I mean, through them, are you seeing culture changes in kids?
I think, boy, that's a heck of a question. I could spend a lot of time talking about this topic, really.
Well, I got the last question.
I think a lot of things are changing. I don't think it's just necessarily the kids' attitudes and mental outlooks on life. I think a lot of things are changing in this world. How much has the kids changed more, or has social media changed more? we'd all agree it's social media has changed more over the last 15 years. So I think a lot of things are changing around the youth and really us grown-ups as well. So everything's changing around us, and I think being able to look at the student athlete's well-being and knowing that we have to adjust something, and for Coach Day to take the steps that he's taken from a mental health standpoint, I get up and applaud him big time. I mean, that's unbelievable and a very righteous cause, and it's awesome that he's doing those things, because it's well needed in this society. That's for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, guys.